Give you a little background on our podcast and what we do here.
Okay.
I am getting a little background noise there somewhere.
Is it on me again? Hang on. We had this issue before. How's that?
Yes. Now good.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is we're going to dive in here in a little bit. We'll do I'll do an introduction. I'll start off the podcast. I'll introduce myself, Michael will introduce himself. I'll toss it to you to introduce yourself, and we will be off and running. We're basically just we'll be very, very organic. We'll ask some questions and stuff like that, but generally speaking, it'll just be, we're ready to dive in and have a good little conversation. I'll probably set it up with an initial question or two, and we'll see where it goes. We run it. It takes us about an hour. It'll end up being two separate. That's even better. Here we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, my camera has some settings.
There you go. It'll be two episodes by the time we're done. But it'll be, as far as recording, it's just going to be one, run through. Michael will end up doing the editing and split it into two. And then at the end, because this is we do YouTube and we do audio podcast. So afterwards, we do a bonus material basically after the audio ends. And usually we usually do is say either, hey, is there something like a parting thought, like a little gem you want to share with the audience, or if you want to throw a challenge out at them, it's sort of like, hey, here's something you can do to improve yourself, make yourself a better developer or entrepreneur. Audience is technical. I want to give you a little heads up, so it's not going to be totally on a hot seat. And it's technical audience, typical figure, new into their career up until, I guess, almost anywhere, but typically are going to be figuring about midway into their career. We're into that point where they're like, okay, I've been developing a lot, but now I've also want to do, I've got a side hustle, or I've got some ideas and I want to go launch my own company or something like that. So,
okay.
Technical founders in some case.
So I should give a lot of bad advice. I understand. Okay, no problem.
Yeah, there you go. It'll shake out. Sooner or later, people will figure out whether the good and the bad advice are one way or another.
Okay.
So that is all we got. Anything else, Michael? Anything from you?
No. How's the audio now?
Not too bad. It's a little robot-y. Like right at the end, there's like a weird little echo kind of thing you got going there.
All right.
Make sure I put my do not disturb on.
You don't use Descript for these?
No, we do. We use Zoom, and then we're going to end up. Michael runs it through some stuff. We've used it once.
Okay.
And it's just Michael. That's a Michael question. Basically, he does the editing now. So.
All right. How's that?
You sound perfect.
There you go.
Okay.
Yep, there you go.
Zoom settings with the AirPod Pros do not play nice. You get a really funk with it. Like audio was what was giving the weird noise background, and then apparently the weird echo.
I can do a weird echo on my own. I don't need Zoom for that.
That's perfect. There we go. We'll just do a lot of sound effects for the show. It'll make it be a very different topic. That's for sure.
Are we bringing back Police Academy now?
There we go. We go old school. Police Academy, what is it, up to like 15 or something like that at this point?
I don't know, but the sounds are definitely awesome.
There we go. All right, here we go. We're going to go 3, 2, 1. Well, hello and welcome back. We are continuing our season where we are getting unstuck, moving forward, for momentum, all those things that you want to do at the beginning of the year, even though now we are actually solidly into the second quarter, because sometimes episodes and series take a while, as do seasons. That being said, this is the Building Better Developers podcast. I am Rob Broadhead, one of the founders of Builder Developers, also known as Developreneur, also the founder of RB Consulting, where we help you stop making mistakes. Basically, if you're sitting there and somebody says, we're just going to use AI, this is the time that you need to talk to us, because we're going to help make sure that you actually get your systems together, get your organization together, so that you can actually leverage the technology and all the other cool stuff that you're going to have, like some of the things maybe that our guests will be talking about today. Because yes, We have a guest today, and we'll be introducing him soon. Good thing, bad thing. Good thing, traveling around, living on the beach, loving life. Bad thing is that sometimes when you're on the beach, there's like a big storm that comes in. So we've been sitting here today, had like worst timing ever. Internet was okay until 2 minutes before a call, and then it dropped on me. So hopefully we don't have that problem. If so, then even better thing for you guys is you get to see everybody else carry the rest of this call. Just like Michael's going to do right now, carrying the introduction of himself.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Malash. I'm one of the co-founders of Developer, Building Better Developers. I'm also the founder of Envision QA, where we create reliable, tailored software that helps you work smarter, scale faster, and stay in control of your business. We help you find those bottlenecks and duplicate processes that you put around your software because your software doesn't work for you. We clean that up and help you get better. Good thing, bad thing. Good thing, they are finally fixing the drainage. I've had some rain issues, erosion issues. My driveway's washing away. They're fixing that. Bad thing, yesterday they cut the electrical line to my well. So we had no water for about 8 hours till we got an electrician out.
Wow, fun times. We got, hopefully it'll get better from here. So today, Alex is going to be talking to us. And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm really impressed by your good thing, bad thing. I have not heard that before, so that's pretty cool. So I guess good thing. I'm Alex. No, okay. I'm Alex Polyakov. I'm a founder of Project Simple AI, and we're a product operating model for engineering and product teams. Essentially, the way I like to talk about what we do is we put Jira to shame. That's the easiest answer. People usually get that one real fast.
Yeah, I think once, especially if you're talking to people that are going to use it, then most people are if you're in the business, you've heard the name Jira before, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about is building a better mousetrap, as it were. Which is, sometimes the bar is set low, and sometimes not so much. But it's how things evolve, and I think that's where we want to go. So I will also mention, and we'll have some links that also you have a podcast. I believe it's Let's Talk Agile.
Yes.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's
there
the
we go.
podcast.
So if you guys want it, if you really like Alex, or if you don't, but you just want him to grow on you, then you can check that out afterwards. Now, first off, let's just dive right into the building a better Jira. Jira's been around for longer than some people have been alive. They're in the business industry these days. It's been around for a long time. But let's dive into let's start with the genesis. What was the thing that got you started with Project Simple to say, I'm fed up, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to do a better version?
So good question. I guess I should start with number one complaint that everybody has with any project management system. It's kind of interesting because there are systems that have been around like Atlassian Jira for 20 plus years. And supposedly they do it all and they manage all the process. But when you ask anybody inside of any organization, what are they mostly complain about? What's their biggest pain? A lot of them say, I don't understand where things are. Which is kind of funny. The product itself, project management systems themselves as a product, they're designed to solve that very problem, but none of them seem to solve it. So we have currently, and this is 2026, we have pretty good trackers, but I call them a glorified Excel sheets. There are lists of lists of lists of lists, different fields, different tables, but for the most part, the biggest problem is where's that visibility that we're all looking for? So for me, when I ran my first startup, I would sign deals with my clients that would include some kind of custom development, integration or something similar, or they would need some kind of a custom feature. And then I would go back to the team, decompose the work, estimate it with the team, have a little bit rough estimate what it would take me as an engineer to build something, distribute it back to the team, and I'm expecting everything to be under control. Well, long and behold, I go back to doing sales and marketing, And about 2 months go by when we're supposed to deliver the feature, and somebody taps me on the shoulder and goes, Alex, we're not going to make it. And this was always like this moment where I'm like, why? Why in your God's, why'd you wait so long to tell me, right? Why couldn't you tell me earlier? Because I have tools that I could use to sort of get us back on track. I could trim the scope, talk to the client. I could extend the timeline. I could add people. As a senior exec, as a startup founder, I have these tools, but I can't fix the problem when it's like, we have to deliver next week. What do I do then? Right? So, and it's the same struggle. You're always relying on people to be honest with you and give you the real information. And unfortunately, everybody's hesitant to report the bad news. Everybody's like trying to be, very optimistic. Yeah, we'll catch up. We'll hit the deadlines. But that's not how executives think. We think in terms of risks, and we think in terms of expenses. So what led up to me actually solving this problem is we started with trying to create an AI that would forecast delivery. And we've created a model, we put a lot of data points together, and then we said, well, we need some data. Let's go into Jira, let's tap our friends on the shoulder, let's download a whole bunch of projects from our friends, and see if we could make sense of that data and what would our model say. And we couldn't make sense of it. The reason why we couldn't make sense is because the data itself didn't really explain anything. The data really relies on people updating the status, right? Because those are the only triggers. Teams do not update their status on time in any system, not that I know of, right? So it's like herding cats, or actually herding developers, right? Please update your status. So you're turning into this nagging leader, constantly like reciting. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like that with my children, like, don't eat candy before bed. Don't eat candy before bed. Don't eat. Oh, there goes the lollipop. But so we pulled the data and we couldn't make sense of it. It just wouldn't work because we didn't have the data to predict anything. We could really just spin Monte Carlo simulations, and I really wasn't going to try to recreate something that's already done. I wanted a real, genuine approach to delivery. And so we needed to create our own data. And this is when I went back to the team and I said, look, if we can't get the data, we need to create our data. But to create our data, we need to build our own project management system. And that kind of spawned the thought. And then the next thing that came up is what we're trying to do is not easy. So what's the biggest pain that we know from all of the systems that exist? The ClickUps, the Mondays, the Reikis, the Jiras, all of them. We know they're all bloated and complicated. And so for the next year and a half, I spent time with my team just working in Figma because I wanted to create the experience that would generate the right behaviors and make it easy to understand. And I told my team, if we can't create the experience, we're not doing this project. But long and behold, quickly it started shaping into something nice. And we figured out how to use very unique and tricky things in UI, like animations, to actually build a platform that's pleasant to use. And we built a process built around behavioral science at the team level to give us that real data that we needed to predict projects. And so it's been almost 5 years now. We're growing steadily, learning from the teams using us. It's been a pretty cool journey.
Well, that's really interesting because while this is one of the things that we go back to on a regular basis, where we talk about there's building this, getting the system and the processes right before you even worry about the tool, whatever the tool happens to be, which is very much, even though you're sort of fixing the tool and you said, hey, we're going to build a tool, but then you backed off of that and said, well, first, we're really going to figure out the why. We're going to figure out, like, what is this going to look like? How is this going to work? So you're really focusing, instead of building a tool, like, in a lot of, honestly, and this is, I think a lot of people do that, is they're going to go out, and they're going to just start cranking out code, and they're going to throw out, they're going to have windows, and they're going to have pages, and they're going to have Jira tickets, and they're going to be closing their Jira tickets. They're doing all that stuff. At the end of the day, they don't have anything useful because they haven't actually solved the problem. They haven't really spent time on the problem itself. They're spending too much time showing what possible solutions could be. And I think this was a great approach that you guys took. And I think it would be one of those things that over time is probably going to be the thing that's going to show the difference. That instead of a Jira, and I know we're picking on Jira. Sorry if you guys work there, but hey, it is what it is. But I think it started simple, and then it grew. And that's just sort of what generally happens is you've got some software, and it's like, we've got a task, we've got a focus, we know what we're doing, and then you get drift. And then you get, okay, we've got another feature and another feature. And now you're like, instead of like things growing in a way that they're still solid, now you're starting to duct tape stuff on. And the next thing you know, you've got a huge suite of features, but they don't, connect properly. So seeing that as
it's been a tough journey. I got to be honest with you, right? Because the entrepreneurship trap is building too much, getting caught up in the features.
Mm-hmm.
But we went through 2 waves in these 5 years that completely disrupted how we've approached things. Number 1 was generative AI, right? So all of a sudden there are things available that we wanted to build, but now there's tools where you could just call directly to it. And number 2 is this new movement where people are looking for different type of interfaces to work with. And it's the question, okay, if we have agents, does project management in its current form of what we know it, is that even the future? So it took a lot of evaluation to figure out, should we even continue? Because it's not really clear where the industry is moving and what the tooling is going to be needed. But, however, about a year ago, when the agents started to come through and we started to see more people adopting AI in their workflows, it became obvious that systems for project management are even more important than they were before. It's not that they're not going to be needed, because the clarity, the visibility of where things are even more crucial in a fast-paced environment than it is in a slow one. And if we had trouble, systemic trouble, like companies as an industry, we had systemic trouble keeping track of what's moving, what's not, where things stand, what's the status, who's next, what's stalled, what's still priority, what should be no longer the priority. If that was our biggest pain, like how do we deliver the value versus all the other stuff, it made it even a bigger pain now that things are moving faster. So, there were a lot of points when we had to start and sort of reevaluate our strategy. Where do we go? Should we proceed with traditional, or do we need to change and go towards something different, like a chatbot interface? So there's still, startups succeed for 3 factors: the right product at the right time and lots of luck. So being in the right place at the right time and having the right product is already one dimension of luck, and then lots of luck on the way is a third one. So I wouldn't be discouraged necessarily if somebody's struggling, but you always have to have your ear to the ground to kind of evaluate, am I on the right track? Is it even worth pursuing? Did I hit something where it's just, my ego at that point? But being a serial entrepreneur, I don't think I learned from my first experience. If I did, I would have picked a much simpler problem to solve.
I don't think many of us learned from our first experience right off the bat. I kind of want to follow with that. So do you think, so you talked initially about, the struggle with Jira or most project tracking tools where it's almost a cultural fear, right? People don't want to update their tickets when things are off track because it's, oh, I don't want to show that things are bad, so I'll wait till the last minute to update my ticket, or I'm busy and I'm not updating my ticket. So the kind of the culture, the usability of the application is not necessarily designed in such a way to kind of foster a culture of honesty, of accountability. It's more, I have a ticket, I'll get to it when I get to it, I'll let you know. There's that fear of, I don't want to say I'm off track because I'm doing something wrong. When you went back to your, it sounds like when you went back to Figma and kind of went through the behavioral science of this, it's kind of clear that you put a lot of thought into how this works, how it's being thought through, how it's being used, and you built a system around that, which I think is why you're seeing that you're able to kind of ride this wave of AI and how things are moving so fast. You kind of went back to, again, like Rob mentioned, the why. Like you focus more on why, but it's almost more like you focus on the culture of software development, the culture of these systems. And you may have found a way to build your product around that is organically able to kind of grow and go with the change in the current industry. I know I'm not articulating that last part correctly, and maybe Rob, you can chime in on that. But it seems like because you went back to the behavioral science, you focused on the user. You really focused on that why. Industry, technology itself you can ride that flow because you understand the why. You understand what it is you're trying to solve. Therefore, the technology is secondary. Generative AI can change, things can change, but you're able to ride that because you understand your why, your problem so clearly. Does that make sense? I know I got a round way to get there. It's just hard to articulate that.
The question is very complex because it's hard to ask that question. But yes, you're absolutely right, Michael. Here's the gist of it. I've been building software for 25 years, right? I was a junior dev. I grew, became tech lead, architect, product manager, director of product, et cetera, software architect, enterprise architect. So I went through the full charade of these roles, and I've learned all the pains of every step of the way. And there are different pains for different people that are involved in product and software development. And those pains vary whether you're running the team, managing or running the project, managing like the entire department, managing one team or several teams versus being inside one team or maybe a team member split among multiple teams. Those are all different type of roles that we encounter in the industry when we work when we work the job. And the pain of all of these people is different. But the systems that we use, and I think somebody came up with something like typical engineer uses something like 10 different products per day, right, to work in their job, right? So the pains are huge. What does the engineer want? The engineer wants to be left alone, right? Get rid of all these useless meetings. I don't want to be a part of them. Give me an interesting problem. Don't bother me. Let me get it to the finish. And give me time to solve it from beginning to the end so I don't cut corners. Stop chasing my tail every step of the way and asking me what's my status and are you making progress? That's what every engineer wants. They want their own environments. They want to be part of that quote, quote, basketball team, right? Or whatever sports team, right? They just love the group of people they work with and they want interesting things to solve, right? What does a manager want? A manager who's managing this team. They want the same thing. They don't want to be jumping on every high priority thing every 2 minutes. They want to know that their team has it. They want to be relaxed looking at the metrics from the strategic point of view and smallest amount of tacticals where their feet are on fire, right? They want to have the visibility. They want to know how to make the team better. They want to know what the team needs to be better. That's what they want to know. That's it. What does a product person wants to know? Product person wants to know that their order of priorities being met, their timelines that they've promised are being kept, and if there's any risks that they can address them. What does an executive want? They want to stay within the budget, within what was promised to the board, and within the delivery scope. So how do we get that in one view? right? How do we get it all together? And so when we started to design, the system, we didn't say, hey, we just want to build a copy of Jira. No, that's how most people started, right? We didn't say, hey, we want to implement Scrum, because that's another way that other project management systems started. They just read a book, whether that's Scrum or Kanban, and said, oh, we'll just read the book and follow the steps and name terminology, and that will be our spec. No, we went and started solving the problem. Hey, how do I stop chasing developers from updating statuses and still know what to do? How do I get rid of micromanagement? How do I relax the stress in the system? How do I know where the work is getting stuck without necessarily asking? How do I build, the positive behaviors in the team? And how do I discourage the negative ones? How can I build a system that nobody has to game? Getting rid of the metrics that have no meaning. Those are the things that we wanted to address. So that's why we don't even call it project management, even though that's what it is. We call it product operating model, because supposedly we need a different name to represent what we do, because the way we do it is totally different and hence deserves a different name. But a lot of it is based on experience. And we talk with lots of teams, we learn pains of others, and we actually get a lot of feedback. Like, for example, this morning I was talking to somebody about Trello. Small team uses Trello. And we talked about that it works for them. And I said, well, it works for you because you're small. But what happens if now you have two teams in the Trello board? You need two boards. How do you know across both boards what's making progress, what's getting stuck? What happens if your list of to-do items in the Trello board gets too long? How do you find this stuff? When things are moving across the swim lanes, if you have too many swim lanes, how can you find that stuff if you constantly scroll up and down in this crazy window, right? What else? How do you know the metrics? How do you decompose the work? Let's say you have a ticket and that one involves multiple steps that can be done by multiple people. How do you visualize that on the Trello board? Oh, you create more swim lanes or less swim lanes, right? So it's not that simple. It's a good tool while you're small. You could do project management on a napkin when you're 3-4 people, but you need the right product at the right time. And this goes back, like when I was a kid, I used to sell Cutco knives. And that was the first thing they teach you, the right tool for the right job, right? They actually give you the right knife and little ropes that you cut the knife with, and, to show off the functionality. And for the most part, people work with preferences, but there is no perfect solution. Even ours isn't. There are pros and cons. For example, an organization that only wants to buy Atlassian, well, they're never going to look at us. So, and I'm okay with that. So, eventually maybe they want to work differently, but there's only so much we can do.
Right. I mean, it's like we've talked before. I'll let you have this right back, Rob. But like we mentioned before, though, it's like Atlassian grew out of its market. They grew to be something for everyone, and therefore they kind of lost their way, and no one likes their product anymore. It's too bloated.
And all of other systems fell into the same trap. This configure the system to work the way you want to work. I think that's a fallacy. Most teams don't know don't know what's the right way of working. There's so much dysfunction because somebody organized a development process that's totally ridiculous and nobody can change it because the governance is locked down. You look at two teams working on the same project having a completely different development process. How's that possible? Well, the manager on one team has a completely different understanding or subjective interpretation of what their agile development process should look like versus another person. They can't agree on the level of severity for, or prioritization or backlog management. So they run things differently. And I don't think that's the right way. Agile is also not well received with the new generation of developers. They don't want to hear the word agile, right? But we still want to teach them the basics, right? We just don't want to call it agile anymore. So we need a system that actually teaches you how to work without necessarily attaching it to a cult, if you will, right? And that's what most teams want. They want to be decoupled from the legacy stuff, and they just want the ease of doing their job. Bottom line. right? Common sense, right? And me being a fireman a long, long time ago, I could tell you that common sense is not that common.
Well, it seems like what you've stumbled on here, I think the Trello example is a great way to show this. Is that it's not the tools; it is the processes. It is how you're going through it. And so, Trello is a great example of it is a great way to just keep adding a feature and adding a feature and adding a feature, and so you end up drifting away from whatever the original goal is. Like in Trello, you originally you've got a plan, you've got some tasks, you want to execute, you want to be able to track it. Okay, great. Well, you didn't really spend enough time to define all that, because now as that starts to grow, you're like, okay, well, now I've got 2 projects. All right, well, we're going to allow, you can add another board. Well, now I've got more tasks. Okay, well, we're going to allow you to scroll. Well, now I've got more stages in the task. Okay, well, we're going to let you, add more columns. Basically, you're going to add more lanes. Is that it goes back to say, okay, you can go ad infinitum, but you're going to end up you're going to hit scaling issues sooner or later. It's a great visual, because sooner or later you're going to run out of space on the screen. It's going to be too wide, it's going to be too deep, and now you've got to do something else. So I'm going to tack another one on. I'm just going to put another, post it onto the board. Doesn't work. Sooner or later it runs out. So that's when you got to step back. And I think this is where you guys did. You just step back and say, wait a minute, let's not play the game. Let's actually figure it out first. Let's not go do the same thing everybody else did. And Agile is a great another great example, because people can agree. You can have people, like you just said, in the same company, you've got 3 or 4 different groups, and they all say, we are an Agile shop. They will yes, we're Agile, and we do Scrum, or we do sprints, or whatever it is. And they'll say, here's the reasons we're Agile. And if you really nail down the teams do not do the same Agile. It's not like Agile is not by definition, it is not a set of rules. It is not something that is that structured. And so they will agree on paper that, yes, this is what they do. But when you get down to the brass tacks, they do it differently. They've got different data, which I think is probably what you saw in Jira. So it's different data, different way of tracking it. And now how do you make those things connect, and how do you actually pull that data in? And so that's where I want to go with this one. Is like it sounds like you guys have it. You're allowing your customers to do what they want to do, but it sounds like there is a project simple approach, or there's some level of buy-in that they're going to have, so that you're able to so that they are consistent, so you're able to do some of those measurements and reports.
Yeah, we challenge the IKEA effect. You know the IKEA effect? So I don't know if the viewers are familiar with it. Basically, when you buy IKEA furniture, you buy it disassembled. And the whole point is that when you assemble it, even though it's not actually going to cost you cheaper than stuff you could buy already put together, but when you assemble it, you build attachment to it. It's now yours. You put it together. It gives you a completely different emotional attachment to it. And the same goes for the companies building out their own development process in whatever system they have. Stepping away from that system after they've configured it, customized it, and invested into is extremely difficult. Why? Because number one, habits. Number two, nobody wants to admit sunk costs. Nobody wants to admit the mistake of going with something. But when you take a look at the actual data, teams don't actually spend 100% of their time on their projects. What they do is they usually spend about 30% of their time fixing their process every single time, constantly tweaking it, perfecting it, modifying it, new statuses, new workflows, new data points, new dashboards. It's a consistent investment. Our approach, we just said, nope, you're going to get it out of the box. You're going to get all of it out of the box. There's nothing to configure. We will give you a proven development process. It's prescriptive, which is another word for limiting, but it's limiting in a way that it's not going to steal the time from you to argue all these things. And that actually created a lot of positive effects, which we didn't anticipate at the time. Number one, when people follow the same development process, you can pluck them from one team to the other team. They don't have to relearn anything. It's all the same. The metrics that are generated by the same development process are identical. They have different meaning on different teams. You're going to have different values, but you're now comparing apples and oranges, and now you understand how it's collected together. There's no interpretation. You can now collate information from multiple teams because you know different criteria. And if you're going to apply AI, which we do, you now have data points that are consistent across. Right? You can't say add 3 pencils and 2 pens and you get a charcoal board. Like, it just doesn't work, right? So you need to have the same methodologies, and that's exactly what we did. So the estimation approaches, the prioritization, everything like that becomes similar. The other thing is we've learned that people just stop arguing and they just focus on the work. We eliminate a lot of that drift that happens inside every team. And it's not important for a small startup with a few engineers. That doesn't matter. The development process there is not really needed. What you need is clarity of communication and just who's doing what. But when you're beginning to scale, you got 7, 10 people, you got 2 teams now, you got 3 teams. Ouch. That stuff starts hurting real quick. People just, stop sleeping and start managing, and eventually they stall. And we've learned a lot from the experience. Like, there's so much that we learn from metrics that are against the industry standards, that we're just scraping the surface here.
And that is where we're going to pause, as if you hadn't figured that out already. Alex has always been fun to talk to. We geek out quite a bit. These may be longer episodes than normal. We'll see how this goes. But there's a lot of great. This is why we get senior developers on the show from time to time. Is there's a lot of really good stuff that Alex shares that is. He does pick apart, I think, a lot of the sacred cows of development, especially in the last 15 or 20 years. There definitely, he and I have had some conversations about Agile and how it's used and where it's valuable and where it's not and where people don't use it right. And it's exactly the same kind of mindset that he has with this tool. It's like, yes, you can use Jira or Trello or ClickUp or Monday or all of those others, and you can make them work. But are you making yourself conform to the tool, or are you making the tool something that is useful to you? So it goes back to our why all the time. Why are you building it? Why did you buy that tool? What do you think you're actually going to get out of it? So don't worry, we will be back with more next episode around. But till then, go out there and have yourself a great day, a great week, and we will talk to you next time.